Cool, awesome.
Oh, we're live.
Here we go. We're away. Hey, Mel, are you in a different room or different place? Are you on tour? What's the story there? Different background today?
Funnily enough, yes. Oh, I've got to have the windows, the curtains closed because behind me is the most incredible backdrop possibly in the world, certainly in the city. It's the Sydney Harbour Bridge, and I know you're an Adelaide boy, but when Sydney's sparkling with the bridge and the boats and the Opera House, it's a pretty impressive sight. I'm down here commentating commentating on the WBBL for Fox Sports, but not even the WBBL and doing some TV commentary can come between you and me and Timed Out. It's a special time of the week.
Important business this. Let's get into it.
All right, let's get on with the show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Timed Out for Sporting News Australia with Callum Ferguson, generously giving us his time once more. And what a week it's been. Have you been some late nights for you, Cal, staying up, watching some World Cup action?
There has been. Actually, I've taken quite a keen eye on the Papua New Guinea Barramundis so far. So they've kept me up late a little bit, having played a little bit against them in the Redbacks Premier League over the last sort of 5-6 years. And a good friend of mine, Chad Sayers, is on board as a bowling coach as well. So I've been watching them closely and wishing them well. Unfortunately, it hasn't gone their way, but there's certainly been some late nights watching the qualifying for the main round. So it's been great viewing so far.
How good's their fielding? Seriously, some of the catches, they are so exciting. I absolutely love the Barras.
Yeah, they're elite in the field. There's no doubt about it. They put a lot of time and effort into it, and that's what it is, fielding. It's an effort-based side to the game, and they bring plenty of effort. And I've been on the wrong side of a bit of that over the years too. So I love everything they bring to cricket, Papua New Guinea. So, look, hopefully they gain a lot of experience out of it, and it helps them continue their journey in the way through to becoming a test-playing nation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're going to talk a little bit more on that topic later on. But until then, let's go through with our first couple of topics. And a big welcome to you, by the way. If you are joining us, do feel free to drop in a question or a comment in the chat box. We love hearing from people. And we've got one already that fits in with our first topic. It's Robert Willing says Steve Smith is not needed. Funnily, which fits in with our first topic, which is all about Steve Smith's importance to Australia. Do you think he's important, Cal, partly or mainly because of the conditions that we're seeing in the UAE?
Yeah, look, everyone's got their own opinion, and certainly I've got one on this. I believe Steve Smith's going to play a huge role in Australia in their efforts this tournament, and particularly if they're going to be successful. I think his ability to walk in and play spin from ball one is something that's going to be very important in these conditions that we've seen and we believe are going to continue through the tournament. Spinners are going to play a huge part, and the fact that he can start against spin and then hurt spin is going to be enormously important. We do have some powerful players of spin, but when there's turn and hold and the wickets are a bit slower, it's not been a strength of the Australian cricket team over a long period of time, especially in T20 cricket. So I feel like Steve Smith's going to be enormously important. And then the players that do have the brute strength can play around Steve. So, look, everyone's got their opinions. Robert, we don't agree on this one, but I'm sure we agree on plenty of others.
Well, someone who does agree is Dazza9692, who says, I think he is needed. He gives the middle order stability. But there's the question, where do you see him batting? Do you think he floats and comes in, if Australia lose a couple of early wickets, he comes in higher? But, if they get off to a good start, maybe he doesn't. How do you see that working?
Yeah, look, I think it's going to be a little bit situational. I think that they'll have to look at the wicket, how it's playing, and potentially the scenario that will confront him and the rest of the team. So, look, I think, Finchie as captain has proven that he is adaptable and he's willing to throw different players in at different situations, depending on who's bowling, the conditions, the pitch, how it's playing. And the players are adaptable these days. They have to be if they're going to be successful because they're going to be asked to play so many different roles in different teams. And I think this will be no different. The players will have to be flexible for the benefit of the team, especially in these conditions where I think from game to game, the conditions might be considerably different.
Do you think that the whole question around Smith is kind of also related to the fact that Australia have all these players playing at the top of the order, and it's the middle order is where they seem to have had players who've done well in the middle order and they're coming in at the top? Is that all part of the worry of Australia's makeup?
Yeah, look, I think traditionally that's probably been one of the areas we haven't got right. We've picked a lot of the guys that have dominated Big Bash League run tallies, and what inevitably happens is the top 2 or 3 are the ones that dominate the run lists, and that leaves you in a bit of trouble if you come into slow conditions and you're trying to fit 6 openers into a top 6. There's not a lot of room for the guys that play middle order in the Big Bash, and I think we're getting a little bit better at that, and hopefully Steve Smith batting at 4 or 5 will start to turn the wheel in the middle order players' favour. But we've got so many damaging players that can bat around, Steve. If we get this right, I think we can go deep into the tournament. There it is. Perfect.
Hey! Nice one.
May have been kind to me there.
Yeah, they were always kind to you. You're a kind man who deserves kindness. Dazza also says Josh Inglis should play. It's a really interesting one, Josh Inglis. I know a few people who are on the Josh Inglis train, but it's been made pretty clear, it seems, by Aaron Finch that they're going to start with Matthew Wade. Well, how do you see that? There's obviously, Matthew, obviously the question of left hand, right hand, which is a big difference between Josh Inglis and Matthew Wade as well.
Yeah, that is a tricky one for the Australians, but I think if Josh Inglis was going to be in the starting lineup for this World Cup, he needed to have been playing a lot more T20 cricket in the Australian side leading into this, and he wasn't, quite simply. So I think Wadey gets first crack at it. I mean, it might be a toughish decision as we go through the tournament and the conditions do slow up even further than we've seen. Do you bring the pure wicketkeeper in or the guy that has been said to have had better wicket-keeping skills purely? But Matthew Wade's glove work has improved over the years, and he's been the one that has been in that lineup settled for quite a period of time. So, look, if Inglis was going to play, he would have played a lot more cricket for Australia in the last 6 months, I think, in T20. So not that I don't disagree with Dazza necessarily. I just think that they won't go that way because of the points I just mentioned.
Yeah, well, it might depend. Well, it'd be interesting to see what happens in the first couple of games. Not that there are too many, but you might see if Australia...
Space. Yeah, you might be right, Mel.
Yeah, if they don't go well. Seasonal writer, just a comment from seasonal writer Ashton Agar will be a key during the middle overs. Yes, we're expecting that the spinners all will be key, and there'll be a lot of pressure on them to perform. But let's move on to our next topic, shall we? Also World Cup related or preliminary World Cup related. India's tactics in the warm-ups have intrigued you somewhat, Callum.
Oh yeah, look, it seemed as though they were just going through the motions, just ticking over, getting everyone a bowl and a bat, including the skipper Virat Kohli attacking the bowling crease. I think that they are just preening themselves and have been in these practice warm-up games. They've literally just been practice, and they've treated them as practice sessions, I guess. Whereas I feel like there's been a lot more pressure on some of the other teams to perform in the practice games. I felt like New Zealand probably just went through the motions a little bit in their practice games so far as well. Whereas the Australian team, I would have thought, just from what I've witnessed, and you might be able to tell me what you think, Mel, but they've probably had a bit more speculation around their lineup, and there's been a little bit more pressure to perform for some of their players who probably feel like they're playing for their positions. So I wonder whether, if the Australians do run deep into the tournament, whether that added pressure early on in the tour might just weigh heavy on them late. It remains to be seen, but certainly there's been a much more relaxed and perhaps unusual preparation for the Indian team, a much more relaxed approach than what you may have seen from them in the past. And I don't mind it, to be honest. I think they're going in ready to go, and they're going to be there in the final, I believe.
Yeah, well, you might have hit on it there about being ready to go by virtue of the fact that they've played a lot more cricket. And maybe that's part of the Australian issue as well, in that so many of them just have hardly played any cricket for the past 6 months. So they sort of probably can't afford to be as relaxed, I guess, as others. Though it is funny image, Virat Kohli bowling. Now, someone will remind me if I'm wrong, but I have it in my head that Virat Kohli bowled in the last T20 World Cup in that match against the West Indies. I think it was at the semi-final at Wankhede Stadium. I have this in my memory. It could be a false memory, but
maybe one of our listeners will be able to confirm or deny that.
I love seeing
it. I do vaguely remember him bowling. Like he has bowled in plenty of internationals previously. I'm just trying to remember if it was in a World Cup. That'd be quite an amazing fact.
Someone will remind me. I haven't had a chance to look that one up, but it's in my. Oh, you look, Rishikesh Panda says yes, right. I knew it. I do remember. I was there.
There's a goal.
Well and done. They lost the match. But seeing Virat Kohli trundle in with his medium paces, I love that almost as much as I love seeing Glenn Maxwell in a black floppy hat. So it is a funny one, these warm-up ones, and it's really weird because we're seeing actual World Cup games at the same time as seeing these warm-up games, and I just don't know that you really can take anything much out of them at all. So it's sort of weird to see them all televised and maybe a bit more being made of them than perhaps should be, because you've got players retiring and playing however many bowlers you want. So I'm not looking too much into it myself.
Yeah, I must admit I don't usually. I think just because the Australian team's been so unsettled, it really, the contrast between the two teams really stood out to me, and it was worth mentioning, I thought.
Yeah, there you go. And seasonal writer says, seasonal writer doesn't say that. He doesn't say that. He says, yes, seasonal wicket says, yes, he got a wicket. And Cataclysm says, Virat is a specialist T20 World Cup bowler. I really hope
string to the bow for Virat. He doesn't need too many more. He's got plenty up his sleeve.
Another comment from Rajesh Mohan on Inglis, just impressed how Inglis won the warm-up game. Yeah, he didn't make many runs, but he did hit the winning runs against New Zealand. Yes, it was against New Zealand. So very interesting stuff to happen there. But let's move on. We'll talk a little bit more about some of the other issues of the week and things that have caught our eye. Back home in Australia, Will Pucovski, so much hope and excitement around this young cricketer, has suffered his 10th concussion. And some of them have been in really unusual circumstances. He got concussed hitting his head on a doorknob. He got concussed when a ball came through an adjacent net and hit him on the head. But Callum, how much doubt does this put around his career at the moment?
Yeah, I was really starting to get concerned last year leading into the India series when he had a significant concussion issue, and we all found out that it was his 9th concussion. I found it really interesting that there wasn't much talk around the long-term effects of all these hits to the head, and that it sounded like he was going to make a comeback, which was quite a quick one. I start to get worried just on the back of the fact that we're finding more and more out about the long-term effects of concussion and how that can affect you later in life. I've got no doubt that they've got the best people in the game and in the profession that are making sure he's safe and that it's not going to give him long-term effects. But it must be really concerning. I think one of the biggest issues and concerns for mine is that at the international stage, they bowl quick and they are very accurate. And if you've got a weakness in your game, it's going to leave you susceptible to getting hit far more often. Now, he hasn't played a lot of international cricket, but he's been hit in the head a lot on the way in the lead up to playing international cricket. It's for a guy who's so talented and such a massive run scorer, which has got us all really excited for his potential at international level. I do have some concerns around the number of times he's getting hit in the head and what the long-term effects could be. But he's a resilient man. There's no doubt about it. He keeps fighting back, and that's what one of the real traits that we love as Australians, and he's got it in an abundance. So I just wish him well and hope that everything's okay and that he can suit up for the Australians and make a truckload of runs at international level.
We certainly do. I'd echo that as well. Have you ever been concussed?
Not to the point of having to leave the field. I've had a couple of hits notable hits that hit me hard in the head, but only, I'd say, 2 or 3 at domestic first class level or international level. Only probably 2 or 3 in my career. I suppose that's why I'm concerned. I don't remember. Like Justin Langer got hit quite a bit when he was playing, made a truckload of international runs, but I don't remember him having been reported that he'd had anywhere near 10 concussions from memory, but I might be wrong. But it's just really concerning for mine. It's a little unnerving.
Absolutely. Let them get the duck away. I know it's right in there. Just to follow on from that, obviously he started off Australian opener last summer, Ashes this year. Who do you think is looking or would be the best shout to open with David Warner?
Yeah, look, we've got some options in domestic cricket. Obviously, Marcus Harris had a huge year over in England, in obviously English conditions where the ball does do a lot, and I think that's a really big tick in his selection criteria boxes. I think the fact that he had scored so many runs at domestic level, some may have said that playing at Junction Oval and some flat wickets at the MCG may have led to some of that. Making the number of runs he made in the UK this year, I think proved that he's got the ability to play the swinging ball, which is the main threat, I think, from the attack that's coming over in the English side. So I think he'd be ready to go. There's some young openers in domestic cricket here that I really like the look of. One of them is Bryce Street from Queensland, played in the Shield winning side last year. I think he's got the ability to grind away and bat long and take the wind out of the opposing bowling attack sails. And the next one is Henry Hunt from South Australia, a guy that I've seen a bit of. And I've seen drive in young players before, but I think, the drive and the want to get better that I've seen from Henry Hunt, I believe long term, he's a good option that the Australians should be looking at Australia A level and potentially long term at the top level. I think those 2 young players are right in the mix for a long term gig. But I think at this point in time, you're going to need to see some runs from guys at Shield level, and there'll be plenty of opportunities by the looks of the schedule that's been released for those guys to make big runs.
And what about Usman Khawaja? Here's another one that, if you're looking for someone with more experience, that maybe you could argue has been a little bit unlucky at times with his national selection.
Geez, I hope you're right, because I thought he had to have been a really good shout last year, and I was quite vocal in that. My concern is, from Usman's point of view, is that he didn't really get a look in at all last year, and I thought he should have got a chance. But you know what? If they are willing to go for an older player, I think he'd be the perfect player. But my concern is that they're just not even looking at him at the moment. So that's the only reason I didn't mention him. If you were putting him up against the guys I just mentioned, he walks into the side ahead of those guys. And that's not disrespectful to the other guys, but I believe if Australia are willing to select their best team, the best team out of all the players available, then he's in that side for mine, and he gets an opportunity. So I just haven't seen enough of that from the Australian selectors in the past. We've obviously got a new selection panel now, which could see things change, but I haven't seen Australia picking the absolute best side that is available in all three formats for a number of years. And I'd love to see it change, because I'd love to see Usman Khawaja get back into that Australian top order, and he can bat anywhere 1 to 3 to 4.
I love it when we agree on stuff. I do. Okay, let's bring up our next topic, and it is another injury, real worry as well. Georgia Wareham has done her ACL, and it's the second time she's done it. She's had a reconstruction before, the Lars ligament replacement for her ACL, and it happened in the WBBL. She just kind of crumpled really when she was going to field a ball in the outfield. She was in a lot of pain straight away. Stood up, walked off, didn't need the Medicab, but then they say that's actually a bad sign when it comes to ACLs. Well, what did you think when you saw that? Because it's such a huge year ahead for women's cricket.
It really is. Look, I really felt for her. Look, I've had 3 ACL injuries in my career. I had a partial ACL tear at 18, and then a full reco at 25, and then another one at 30. And this, for her to have her second, is brutal. And it'll be really hard in the initial stages. It'll be quite emotional. Are you aware as to whether it was her same ACL, the same leg, or not?
I believe so. I thought so.
Yeah, because I wasn't 100% sure on that. The Lars ligament is noted to have been usually used on players towards the back end of their career, because it's a quicker turnaround. And historically, those ligaments had a bit of a record of re-rupturing after a period of time. But it is a horrifying result for her. She'd been bowling really well, looked to have been settling right back in. And I'm just devastated for her. It's, I kind of hope she goes the full ACL reconstruction using the natural hamstring ligaments, and look at. Hopefully, she's got plenty of cricket to come in front of her, but it is a brutal hit, and it does take time to heal, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, and you've got Women's Ashes coming up later in the summer. You've got Women's World Cup next year in Birmingham. I think it's June and July. It's the Commonwealth Games with women's cricket being in there. So those 3 things happening in the next 9 months. That would have to put her in real doubt for that. Any thoughts on who might come in to the Australian side? They've tried Amanda Jane Wellington has been a part of it before. Alana King has been really impressive in the WBBL. Maybe some concern about her fitness. I'm not sure, but Australia, do you think they'll have to find themselves another leggy?
Yeah, look, I think for mine, Amanda Jade Wellington is the one. Just coming off some great experience over in the 100 in England, and bowling really well and having some great results over there. So I think she's the one for mine. Good South Australian girl, no bias there at all. I genuinely believe that experience in England will hold her in good stead. She's bowling well at the moment. Get her in.
I didn't get that away. Yeah, South Australian girls. Your Talia McGrath is going well. Yeah, there's the shot there of Georgia Wareham. She was very, very painful looking injury at that time. So anyway, hopefully she has a quick a recovery from that as quick as possibly can be. But look, let's move on to our final topic, one that's bound to get me riled up. And it is, just let me get settled at the top of my long run. Should we do away with the World Cup qualifying round? For me, it's a big resounding yes. These teams have spent 2 years qualifying for a World Cup, only to come and have to qualify again before they can play in the Super 12s. For me, I think they should open it up and just have, if you qualify for a World Cup, that should earn you the right to play anyone and possibly defeat anyone. One of the main reasons that it's resisted is that everyone remembers the 2007 World Cup when India were bundled out in the early stage by Bangladesh and Sri Lanka. That's ratings and dollars involved there. But we've seen some brilliant things this week. We've seen, a 4-in-4 ball effort by Kamphar, the batting of Berrington. We talked about the fielding of PNG. Let them play. And if the so-called big teams, the full members, aren't good enough to beat them, bad luck. It's a World Cup. What I think.
Yeah, look, I agree with you. I don't think you, give these sides. It's almost condescending for mine, having them play this little pre-tournament to try and make their way into play against the big teams, the test-playing nations. I think if you're going to put a World Cup in front of these nations that are trying to get to test status, they're trying to make their way into a World Cup, then it's got to be as a fully fledged World Cup competitor. This is just, I think, a little bit condescending, and I don't think we should ever be in the game of being concerned about certain sides getting bundled out. The best teams will win. The best teams will go through, and then the knockouts take place. And from there, it can be a bit of a lottery, but that's okay. You've had your chance to qualify and play against the lowest ranked team possible by getting as far up the ladder as you can. I'm all for all of these nations getting a chance, having qualified, to play against Australia, to get to play against South Africa. And if they're good enough, they'll win on the day, and that's the way it is.
Absolutely. I mean, it's sort of like inviting someone to a party and then making them sort of stand outside and look through the windows because you don't like the shoes they're wearing, or they haven't worn a collared shirt along, or something like that. And my experience in talking to players in the associate countries is, I actually think it means more to them. And you see how much it does on the field, because this is their one shot. They don't take it as for granted in any way, shape, or form. And I agree with you. I think it's a bit condescending, a little bit patronizing. Let's never use the word minnows to describe associates, because I don't like that either.
Me neither.
Yes. There's a lot of agreement from
Beautiful.
us there. Yeah, absolutely love it.
It's not to say too much, but that's okay.
Well, it's good to know that you're also on the right side of everything, Callum. I really appreciate it.
Is that what it is?
That's why I signed you up. Anyway, thank you all so much for coming and joining us. We're going to have a lot of late nights again watching the rest of the World Cup. Yeah, so much to come. All eyes on Australia, South Africa tomorrow night, but also the last couple of qualifiers. That's going to be pretty interesting too, to see who's going to get through with those games tonight. Anyway, we will go and watch an awful lot of cricket. I hope you all take care out there watching a lot of cricket, and we will see you next week for another episode of Timed Out. Until then.
Thanks, guys.